Can everyone see it?
没问题。
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Now I'm going to introduce you to my research topic, the role of self-affirmation intervention on friendship intimacy in adolescence, the risk in connection. And now in the introduction and background part, I'm going to introduce you to two theories. Well, actually one model and one theory that kind of like back up my whole research. The first one being the risk regulation model. So it holds that in a close relationship, especially romantic relationships, the individuals with low self-esteem tend to gravitate towards a sense of inferiority and insecurity. They reflect their own doubts and denial of themselves on their partner's feelings, and therefore leads to an underestimation of partner's caring and love. So as a result, they distance partners to curb the hypersensitivities in generating hurt feelings and further self-denial. So, well, it's kind of like a vicious cycle, as you can see in the pictures. And the second one being the self-affirmation theory. Let's first understand what self-affirmation is. By definition, it's the act that affirms one's own worthiness and value that demonstrates one's adequacy. In the self-affirmation theory, it holds that people are motivated to maintain a global sense of adequacy, to overarching pictures of themselves as a good moral. And so, if they receive threatened information such as, well, criticism, they distance and react defensively to the threatened information to curb the potential negative outcomes. However, the intervention of self-affirmation where usually people write about important values, for example, friends, families, called value affirmation, affirms individuals in a different domains from the threat, which assure them the capabilities to cope with a certain threatening circumstance and therefore attenuates the defensiveness. So, in my research, I applied the self-affirmation theory on the risk regulation model. Because think about it, if the low self-esteem individuals distance from their partners because of self-denial and low self-integrity, then the self-affirmation could eliminate the self-doubts and generate feelings of love and caring, as Crocker proposed in his research, and therefore enhance the friendship intimacy. And on top of that, I also want to test whether the risk regulation theory apply on relationships outside of romantic relationships. In this case, friendships. And I also want to test whether it works on adolescents as well. So here is what I did. The participants are 136 Chinese adolescent participants, and with a mean age of 15.78. And in terms of their friendship status, all participants were in a close friendship relationship with one person for at least 2 months, with a mean month of 17. The procedures are as follows. First, before the participant came to do the affirmation and threat task, I had them filling out 2 questionnaires, assessing their self-esteem and friendship intimacy level. And then, for some of the participants, they received the threat task, where I asked them to think of the most serious conflict they had with their close friends and what the friends say. So that kind of served like a threat and information. And next, the participant received a handout listing with 12 personal values. They are randomly assigned into control and treatment groups. Those in the treatment groups rank the values in order of importance and write down why they think the top values are of great importance, as well as why it is important to make them feel more connected. Whereas those in a control condition were to choose the values that they are least important to them and write down the reasons. And after this, they did a post-test for the friendship intimacy level using the same questionnaire. And finally, 1 week later, I followed up, but with only those people in the treatment groups, and asked them to complete the friendship intimacy test again. This score is compared with their initial post-test score, so the one in the first orange square, and to see whether the self-affirmation intervention has a long-term effect on friendship intimacy. And then, and then this is what I got. In the treatment condition with threat tasks implemented on participants, as you see in the left picture, the average friendship intimacy score showed a significant augment among the low self-esteem participants and a slight but insignificant decrease among the high self-esteem individuals. What this indicates is that a successful self-affirmation intervention on low self-esteem individuals and the ineffectiveness of it on high self-esteem individuals, which, yes, certainly makes sense because the risk regulation theory only applies on those with low self-esteem. And in a control condition where participants received the threat information but were not self-affirmed, this low self-esteem participants react adversely. As you can see, there is a significant drop in the friendship intimacy level among those with low self-esteem and made insignificant difference among the high self-esteem participants. So this again indicates that the distancing effect brought forth by the threat task only apply on the low self-esteem individuals and will contribute to a decrease in the adolescent friendship intimacy level. And for the follow-up test, unfortunately, the score did not differ significantly from their initial scores before the intervention. So what this suggests is that the intervention does not provide a long-term effects on adolescents' friendship intimacy level. Well, but it still has an effect. And so we reached to our conclusion. When low self-esteem individuals were confronted with a threatened information, the self-affirmation intervention would significantly reduce the distancing response and therefore leads to a higher friendship intimacy level. But the same does not apply for those with high self-esteem, as the risk regulation theory holds. And also, the self-affirmation intervention seems to have a long-term effect on friendship intimacy. And now we move to the discussion part. I concluded 3 points for my implication. First one being, we find out that the risk regulation theory not only applies on the romantic partners, but is also pervasive in friendship, another relationship. And also, how cool is it that although low self-esteem individuals have vulnerabilities in their relationship, we have found out a tool like self-affirmation. The self-affirmation intervention attenuates the defensiveness interpersonal responses exhibited by people with low self-esteem in response to relationship-based self-threats, which in this case, the pure conflict. And lastly, we find a way to encourage low self-esteem individuals to draw self-affirming meanings that seems to elude them before and let them find a way to benefit from a more pleasant friendship. And for the future directions, instead of comparing the intimacy score as a whole, why don't we break down to the single items? Because in that questionnaire, there are like 8 items. Why don't we look at the comparisons between those items, their difference, and see what item did self-affirmation affect the most? And also, we not only know that the self-affirmation intervention doesn't have a long-term effect on friendship intimacy, but we don't know why. So to figure that out, maybe we can do like a daily diary interest pose intervention to test what is happening in their real life that make the self-affirmation intervention not a long-term effect. Yes, that's all. Thank you for listening.